The threat was delivered on a Thursday afternoon in front of 200 people. Grand Wizard Harold "Hal" Townsend stood on a makeshift stage in a warehouse in Queens, surrounded by Klan members in full regalia, white robes, hoods, the works. Behind him hung a massive banner, "Restore White America." The rally had been advertised for weeks. The press was there, photographers, even a few police officers standing at the back, arms crossed, watching but not intervening because technically this was protected speech. Townsend was in his element. 53 years old, gray-haired, a former insurance salesman who'd found his calling in hate. He'd been Grand Wizard of the New York chapter for 6 years, and under his leadership, the Klan had grown bolder, more public, more willing to make threats in daylight. Today's speech was about the Negro problem in Harlem. He ranted for 30 minutes about crime, about drugs, about how black people were destroying the character of New York. The crowd ate it up. Applause, cheers. Someone yelled, "Tell 'em, Wizard!" Then Townsend said the words that would change everything. "And let me be clear about something." His voice rose, carrying across the warehouse. "There are those in Harlem who think they're untouchable, who think they can operate outside the law, who think they run that neighborhood like it's their own private kingdom." He paused for effect. "I'm talking about Bumpy Johnson." The crowd went wild, hooting, hollering. Someone banged a drum. "Bumpy Johnson thinks he's protected. He thinks because he's got the numbers game and a few corrupt politicians in his pocket, nobody can touch him. But I'm here to tell you, his days are numbered. And when the righteous rise up, when we take back our city, men like Bumpy Johnson will learn that there's no place for his kind in a white America." More applause, more cheers. A reporter in the front row scribbled notes. A photographer snapped pictures. And somewhere in Harlem, someone who'd been at that rally made a phone call. The call reached Bumpy at Small's Paradise around 6 p.m. He was having dinner with Mamie when Julius Gordon approached the table, leaning down to whisper, "We need to talk, privately." Bumpy excused himself, followed Julius to the back office. "What is it?" "Harold Townsend, the Grand Wizard. He held a rally today in Queens, 200 people, press coverage, and he threatened you by name." "Threatened how?" "Said your days are numbered. Said when the righteous rise up, you'll learn your place." Said it in front of 200 Klan members and half a dozen reporters. Bumpy was quiet for a moment. "Where does Townsend meet with his inner circle?" "What?" "His inner circle, the men who actually make decisions, not the rally crowd, the leaders. Where do they meet?" Julius pulled out a small notebook. "We've had eyes on them for months. They meet every Thursday night after rallies, usually at the same warehouse in Queens. Private room in the back, 6 to 8 men. That's where they plan operations." "What time?" 9 p.m., usually goes until midnight." Bumpy looked at his watch. It was 6:15 p.m. "Get 12 men, armed but disciplined. I want them ready by 8. And Julius, nobody gets hurt unless they start something. This isn't about violence. This is about sending a message." "What message?" "That when someone threatens Bumpy Johnson publicly, Bumpy Johnson responds privately and quickly." At 9:47 p.m., Harold Townsend sat in the back room of the Queens warehouse, surrounded by 7 other men, the Klan's Regional Leadership Council. They were reviewing the day's rally, attendance numbers, media coverage, plans for the next event. The mood was celebratory. Townsend was particularly pleased with himself for the "days are numbered" line. It had gotten the biggest reaction from the crowd. "We need to follow through," one of the men said. "You made a public threat. If we don't back it up, we look weak." "I'm aware. I've already got people working on it." Within a month, we'll have something planned, something that'll make headlines. That's when they heard it. The sound of the warehouse's main door being forced open. Townsend stood up. What the hell was that? One of the men moved to the back room's door, opened it a crack, looked out into the warehouse. Then he slammed it shut, his face pale. There's a dozen men out there, black men, armed. What? They're walking toward this room, right now. Townsend's mind raced. This was their warehouse, their territory. How did anyone even know they were here? Lock the door, he ordered. Call the police. One man grabbed the phone. The line was dead. Cut. The footsteps were getting closer. Then they stopped, right outside the door. A knock, 3 times, calm, patient. Another knock, louder this time. Then a voice, deep, calm, unmistakable. Open the door, Mr. Townsend, or we'll open it for you. Townsend recognized the voice from descriptions he'd heard, from recordings. Bumpy Johnson. What do we do? One of the men whispered, terrified. Townsend pulled out a pistol from his desk drawer. 2 other men did the same. We're armed. You're trespassing on private property. Leave now or we'll defend ourselves. There was a pause. Then the voice again. Mr. Townsend, you made a public threat this afternoon. Said my days were numbered. Said when the righteous rise up, I'd learn my place. Well, the righteous have risen, and they're standing outside your door. So I'm going to give you one chance. Open this door and have a conversation, or we come in and it won't be a conversation. You're bluffing. Count to 10. If that door isn't open, you'll find out. Townsend's hand was shaking. His 7 companions were all looking at him, waiting for a decision. From outside, 1. Townsend raised his pistol, aimed it at the door. 2. The other armed men positioned themselves. 3. Townsend's mind was calculating. 8 men inside. Bumpy said a dozen outside. The odds weren't good. And if shots were fired, if this turned into a gunfight, 4. They might win, but at what cost? Dead bodies, police investigation, federal attention. 5. The Klan's entire New York operation could collapse. 6. And Bumpy Johnson had a reputation. If he was here, it meant he'd planned this carefully. 7. Which meant he probably wasn't bluffing. 8. Townsend lowered his gun. Wait, he called out. The counting stopped. We're putting our weapons down. We're opening the door, but I want your word, no violence. I have it, unless you give me a reason. Townsend set his pistol on the desk. The others did the same. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and opened it slowly. Bumpy Johnson stood in the doorway, surrounded by 12 men, all armed, all watching, all calm. Bumpy was dressed in a dark suit, white shirt, no tie. He looked like he'd just come from dinner. He stepped into the room. His men stayed outside, creating a wall between the Klan leadership and any escape route. Bumpy looked around the room slowly, taking in the 8 men, the Klan paraphernalia on the walls, the papers on the table. Then he looked at Townsend. You said my days were numbered. Townsend tried to maintain composure. That was rhetoric, political speech. No, it was a threat, made publicly, in front of 200 of your people and half a dozen reporters. You put my name in the newspaper attached to a death threat. I didn't threaten to kill you. You said my days were numbered. What else does that mean? Townsend said nothing. Bumpy walked further into the room, his men still blocking the door. Here's what's going to happen, Bumpy said quietly. You're going to have another rally next week. Same warehouse, same setup, same press coverage. And at that rally, you're going to make a correction. A correction? You're going to clarify
that your comments about me were misunderstood, that you weren't making a personal threat, that you have no quarrel with me or with any law-abiding citizen of Harlem, and that the Klan's focus is on political issues, not on individual citizens. I'm not doing that. Do you know what that would do to my credibility? My members would. Your members will do what you tell them, or they'll find a new Grand Wizard. And you, he stepped closer, you will find yourself in a very difficult position. Are you threatening me? No, I'm giving you a choice. You made a public threat. I'm giving you the opportunity to publicly retract it. If you don't, then we have a different kind of problem. What kind of problem?
Bumpy glanced at the papers on the table. Membership lists, financial records, plans for future rallies. I know where this warehouse is. I know when you meet. I know how many people are in your inner circle. I walked in here tonight with 12 men and not one of you heard us until we were at your door. You had guns, you had numbers, you had home advantage, and you still opened that door because you knew fighting me would cost more than talking to me. He picked up one of the membership lists, scanned it. I also know that half your funding comes from 3 donors. I know that your rallies require permits from a city council that's already uncomfortable with your public presence. And I know that if federal authorities started looking at your organization, really looking, they'd find all sorts of interesting things. Weapons violations, tax issues, interstate coordination that might qualify as conspiracy. He set the paper down. So here's your choice, Mr. Townsend. Next week, you hold a rally, you make a correction, you clarify that you're not threatening any individual, and we all go back to our respective corners. Or, he gestured around the room, I make sure that every Thursday night you're looking over your shoulder, wondering if tonight's the night I come back, and next time I might not be interested in talking. The room was absolutely silent. One of the other Klan leaders, a younger man, maybe 35, spoke up. You can't intimidate us. You're 8 men in a back room with no phone and no backup. I walked past your security. I cut your phone lines. I blocked your exits. And I'm standing here having a conversation while 12 armed men ensure nobody interrupts us. If that's not intimidation, I don't know what is. He turned back to Townsend. So what's it going to be? A public correction or a private war? Townsend's jaw was tight. His face was red. Every instinct was telling him to refuse, to fight, to maintain his authority in front of his men. But he wasn't stupid. Bumpy Johnson had walked into the Klan's headquarters 24 hours after a public threat and demonstrated that he could reach them anytime, anywhere. If Townsend refused, what would happen next? More visits? Worse than visits? And if this escalated, if it became a war, the Klan would lose because Bumpy Johnson had something the Klan didn't: the support of an entire neighborhood, an intelligence network that reached into every corner of the city, and the strategic patience to plan operations like this one. Fine, Townsend said through gritted teeth. I'll make a correction. Good. Next Thursday, same time, same place, I'll be reading the newspapers to make sure you follow through. Bumpy turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. If I ever hear my name come out of your mouth again, at a rally, in private, in a conversation with your people, there won't be a conversation. There'll just be consequences. Understand? Townsend nodded stiffly. Bumpy walked out. His 12 men followed. The door closed behind them. The 8 Klan leaders stood in the room, listening to the footsteps fade, listening to the warehouse door open and close. Then, silence. One of the men finally spoke. We can't let this stand. Shut up, Townsend snapped. He just proved that we're not as protected as we thought.
He got in here. He could have killed all of us if he wanted, and he walked out without a scratch because he knew we wouldn't fight him. So what do? Townsend sat down heavily. We do exactly what he said. Next week, I make a correction. I walk it back, and then we never mention Bumpy Johnson again, ever. That makes us look weak. We are weak, Townsend said bitterly. We just didn't know it until tonight. The following Thursday, Harold Townsend held another rally. The press was there again, about 150 Klan members this time. Word had spread about something big being announced. Townsend took the stage and delivered a carefully worded statement. Last week, I made some comments about certain individuals in Harlem. Those comments have been misinterpreted by some as personal threats. I want to clarify. The Klan's focus is on political issues and cultural preservation. We are not targeting any specific individuals. Any suggestion otherwise was a misunderstanding. The crowd was confused. Members looked at each other. What was he doing? Why was he backing down? But Townsend's inner circle knew. They'd all been in that room when Bumpy Johnson walked in. They'd all seen what happened when someone with real power decided to respond to a threat. And they all understood the message. Public threats are easy to make. It's the private responses you have to worry about. The story of what happened that night spread through New York's underworld like wildfire. The details varied depending on who was telling it. Some said Bumpy brought 20 men. Others said he went in alone. Some said there was a gunfight. Others said he just talked. But everyone agreed on the core facts. A KKK Grand Wizard made a public threat against Bumpy Johnson. 24 hours later, Bumpy walked into the Klan's headquarters and made the Grand Wizard back down. No violence, no bloodshed, just strategic intimidation and a message so clear that even the Klan understood it. You can make threats, but if you threaten Bumpy Johnson, he'll show up at your door before you can follow through. And when he shows up, you'll realize very quickly that you made a mistake. Harold Townsend remained Grand Wizard for 2 more years, but his authority was never the same.
The story of Bumpy Johnson walking into their headquarters haunted him. His own members questioned his leadership. If you couldn't protect us from one man, how can you protect us from anyone? By 1960, Townsend resigned. He moved out of New York, citing health reasons. The New York Klan chapter fractured after his departure. Internal feuds, leadership disputes. Within 5 years, their public presence in the city had essentially disappeared. Some credited federal pressure, others credited changing social attitudes. But people in Harlem knew the truth. It started the night Bumpy Johnson decided that a public threat required a private response. And when he walked into that room and made 8 armed men back down through nothing but presence and strategic demonstration of power, he proved something that became part of his legend. It's easy to make threats when you're surrounded by supporters. It's harder to follow through when the person you threatened is standing in front of you, showing you exactly how vulnerable you actually are. Harold Townsend said Bumpy Johnson's days were numbered. 24 hours later, Bumpy showed him that he could walk into the Klan's headquarters anytime he wanted. And the message was clear. If you're going to count down someone's days, you'd better make sure you can count faster than they can reach your door. Because Bumpy Johnson could reach anyone's door in less than 24 hours. And when he arrived, the only question was whether you'd be smart enough to open it and talk, or stupid enough to keep it closed and find out what happened next. Townsend chose to talk. It was the smartest decision he ever made, and the most humiliating. But he lived to tell the story, which was more mercy than he'd shown to the people he'd spent years threatening. Bumpy Johnson walked into a room full of armed Klan members and walked out having won without firing a single shot. That's not just power, that's mastery.